The taste of wine turned bitter in my mouth as I watched Samuel's face crumble across the crowded room. My own laughter still echoed in my ears, mixing with everyone else's as they replayed my joke. Samuel? In a fight? He'd probably apologize to his attacker and offer them a ride home. The party guests were still chuckling, but Samuel had gone completely still by the kitchen doorway, his beer frozen halfway to his lips. My name is Michelle. I'm 31, and I'm a marketing executive. This is the story of how I learned that some words can't be taken back. For 6 years, I'd built my confidence on Samuel's patience. He never fought back when I teased him about being too gentle, too considerate, too soft for this world. At dinner parties, I'd roll my eyes when he'd politely disagree with someone's political opinion instead of arguing. During our friend's divorce drama, I'd joke that Samuel was too nice to ever leave anyone, even if they deserved it. He'd just smile that quiet smile and change the subject. I should have recognized the warning signs. 3 months before that terrible party night, when I'd mocked his careful driving in front of my sister, he'd gone silent for the entire evening. 2 weeks before the party, when I'd laughed about his adorable fear of confrontation at my office gathering, he'd excused himself early. But Samuel never complained, never pushed back, so I assumed everything was fine. The night everything changed started so normally. Rebecca's housewarming party was exactly the kind of event I thrived at. Good wine, interesting people, plenty of opportunities for witty conversation. Samuel had agreed to come even though he preferred quiet evenings at home. I was holding court near the fireplace, telling stories about my latest client presentation, when the conversation shifted to relationships and protection. "Ladies, be honest," Rebecca's cousin Jake announced, gesturing with his whiskey. "If someone tried to rob you and your man on the street, do you really think he could handle it?" The question hung in the air for a moment before I burst into laughter. Samuel? Oh, God, he'd probably try to have a reasonable conversation with them first. "Excuse me, but have you considered the emotional impact of your choices?" I'd end up protecting both of them. The room exploded with laughter. I felt that familiar rush of being the center of attention, the clever wife with the funny observations. I was so caught up in the moment that I didn't notice Samuel had walked into the room until I saw his reflection in the window behind me. His face had drained of color. Not angry. Samuel never got angry. But something worse. He looked hollow, like something essential had just been carved out of him. For a split second, our eyes met in that window reflection, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Resignation. "Oh, there's my gentle giant now," I continued, riding the wave of laughter. "Honey, we were just talking about whether you could fight off a mugger. I told them you'd probably invite him for coffee and therapy." More laughter. Samuel managed a weak smile and nodded to the group before quietly slipping away toward the kitchen. I should have followed him. Instead, I kept going. I swear, sometimes I think I married a golden retriever in human form. All kindness, no bite. 20 minutes later, I found Samuel by the back door, car keys already in his hand. "Ready to go?" he asked, his voice perfectly pleasant and completely wrong. We made our way to the car in silence, the 15-minute drive home stretching endlessly between us. Samuel's hands gripped the steering wheel at exact 10 and 2, his eyes focused straight ahead. I tried filling the silence with chatter about the party, about Rebecca's new house, about anything. He responded with small nods and quiet mm-hms. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Okay, what's wrong? Are you seriously upset about those jokes? You know I was just being funny, right?" Samuel pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine. For a long moment, he just sat there, staring at the garage door. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm and measured, the tone he used when he was trying very hard not to say something he'd regret. "Michelle, do you respect me?" The question caught me off guard. Of course I do. Why would you ask that? "Because for 6 years, you've made me the punchline of every joke. In front of your friends, your family, strangers at parties, you talk about me like I'm your disappointing pet project instead of your husband." I felt my defenses rising. "Oh, come on, you're being way too sensitive. Those were just jokes. Everyone jokes about their spouse." "No," he said quietly. "Everyone doesn't humiliate their spouse. There's a difference between affectionate teasing and what you do to me." I scoffed. "Humiliate? That's dramatic, even for you." Samuel finally turned to look at me, and what I saw in his eyes made my stomach drop. It wasn't hurt or anger. It was done. "You're right," he said. "It is dramatic. Just like it was dramatic when you told your book club that I was too much of a pushover to ever leave. Just like it was dramatic when you announced at my own birthday party that I was the type of guy who'd lose a fight with a butterfly. Just like it was dramatic when you laughed with your mother about how I'd never be man enough to stand up to you. Each example hit like a physical blow. I remembered saying those things, but they'd seemed so harmless at the time, just casual observations that got easy laughs. Samuel, I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did." His voice remained steady, which somehow made it worse. "You meant every word, and the worst part is, I let you. I thought if I was patient enough, loving enough, understanding enough, you'd eventually see me as a partner instead of a joke. But tonight, watching you perform for that room using my dignity as your material, I realized something. I've been waiting for you to respect me, but I've never demanded it. And that's my fault." He got out of the car and I scrambled to follow him. "Samuel, wait. We can talk about this. I'll be more careful about what I say." He stopped at the front door, key in hand. "Michelle, do you know what you said to Jake when he asked if I could protect you?" I felt heat rising in my cheeks. "You said you'd have to protect me. Not just that you didn't think I could handle a fight, but that I'd be so useless you'd have to save me too." He unlocked the door but didn't go inside. "That's not a joke about my fighting skills. That's a fundamental statement about what kind of man you think I am." "But you're not a fighter," I protested. "That's not who you are." "You're right. I'm not a fighter. I'm a man who chooses kindness over aggression, who believes in talking through problems instead of escalating them. I'm someone who thinks before he speaks and considers other people's feelings. But in your mind, that makes me weak. In your mind, that makes me a joke." I wanted to argue, but the words died in my throat because he was right. I had always seen his gentleness as weakness, his thoughtfulness as indecision, his kindness as naivety. "The thing is," Samuel continued, "I spent so long being the man you could ridicule that I forgot I could also be the man who chooses not to accept it anymore." He walked inside, leaving me standing on the front porch. When I followed him in, he was already pulling a suitcase from our closet. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to stay at my brother's place for a while." "Samuel, you're overreacting. We can work through this." He paused in his packing. "Michelle, answer me honestly. When you picture our future together, do you see yourself treating me with respect? Or do you see yourself continuing to get laughs at my expense because you know I'll never leave?" I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it. Because if I was being honest, really honest, I had never planned to stop. His patience had always felt limitless, and I'd built my social confidence on that foundation. "That's what I thought," he said softly, "but I love you." "I know you do, but love without respect isn't enough. Not anymore." Samuel finished packing in silence while I stood there, cycling through anger, disbelief, and the growing realization that I had fundamentally misunderstood our entire relationship. I thought his gentleness meant he had no backbone. I thought his patience meant he had no breaking point. I thought his love meant I could treat him however I wanted without consequences. 3 weeks passed in tense silence before the divorce papers arrived at our house. Not threats or ultimatums, just clean, efficient paperwork filed by the man I'd always called too soft to take decisive action. The man who'd never raised his voice to me had spoken louder than I'd ever heard him by simply walking away. I called him once after that, reaching out through my desperation and pride. "Samuel, please, I understand now. I can change." His response was devastating in its kindness. "Michelle, I believe you could change. But I can't spend any more of my life being someone's practice round for learning how to love with respect. I deserve better than that, and honestly, so do you." The line went quiet, and then he added, "I hope someday you find someone who makes you want to build them up instead of tear them down, and I hope they're smart enough to expect that from day one." 2 months later, I signed the divorce papers without contest, officially ending our 6-year marriage. The finality of it hit harder than I'd expected. 6 months after our divorce was finalized, I saw Samuel at our mutual friend Sarah's wedding. He looked lighter somehow, more present. He was talking with a group of people, and they were listening to him, really listening, in a way I don't think I ever had. When someone made a joke, he laughed easily, but no one was making jokes about him. He'd found people who saw his gentleness as strength instead of weakness. We exchanged polite nods across the reception hall, but didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. I'd spent 6 years teaching him that love wasn't enough, and he'd finally learned the lesson I never intended to teach. Looking back, I realized the cruelest irony of our relationship. I'd married Samuel because he was different from the aggressive, volatile men I'd dated before. His kindness had felt like safety, his patience like security. But once I had that safety, I'd started testing it, pushing against it, taking it for granted. I'd confused his strength for weakness because his strength was quiet. The man I'd called too soft to leave anyone had left me. The man I'd joked would never fight for anything had fought for his own dignity. And the man I'd claimed couldn't protect anyone had protected himself from the one person who'd been slowly destroying him. If you're in a relationship where you feel safe enough to be cruel, ask yourself why that safety exists. If it's because your partner loves you enough to absorb your worst impulses, maybe it's time to love them enough to change those impulses instead. Because patience isn't infinite, kindness isn't weakness, and love without respect is just elaborate cruelty with good intentions. Some people think gentle means pushover. Samuel taught me that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is quietly refuse to accept less than you deserve. And sometimes the loudest statement you can make is walking away without raising your voice. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible. Your first month is completely free. That's access to over 500,000 titles. Zero cost to you. All the details are waiting in the description. Don't miss this one.